Over the years, we've seen some fantastic innovations, but there's also been a lot of crazy boot technology popping up. The big question is, has boot evolution gone too far and become unnecessary and maybe even unfair? Because after the remake of the Japan Blue Mania, I was sat thinking how it's a little bit funny how an Obra from 2002 can still perform so well in 2020 after just getting a new outsole. And also how the Mizuno Mercurial 2 can still be going strong after being more or less unchanged since 1985. So did we really need all the innovations we've had since then? And also it struck me, can boot evolution and innovation reach a point where one day football boots become so unfair that we need to make regulations and rules so people don't lose their minds, like we've seen in running with the Nike ZoomX Alphafly? I really hope not, but those are some pretty big questions, and to help me out, I reached out to my good friend and fellow boot nerd Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com to help me answer if the innovations have actually been good for anything or if they're pointless and basically the emperor's new clothes.
Thanks, Jay, and you're right. There's a lot of change for the sake of change in the football boot industry, with big brands trying to get us to believe that newer is always better. But if you look at a classic boot like the Copa Mundial, it's been around for a long time, lots of players still wear it, and the reason why they still wear it is even though it's old, it's still really good.
But no matter what you think, there's no denying that football boot evolution and innovation has visibly changed football boots now compared to what they looked like back when the evolution really started in 1994. Because whether it was putting rubber elements on the first Predator or giving us a synthetic leather on the Mercurial R9s in 1998, they took some really big strides back then. And then things only started to get more and more crazy. We got our asymmetrical lacing system on the Air Zoom Total90 in 2000. Then we had our first laceless boot. Think about it, in 2006. It was crazy back then. In 2010, we had the F50 adizero with its wildly lightweight upper and outsole. And then, of course, knitted uppers came and took over basically the entire market after it was introduced in 2014. And while the brands made some really big evolutionary strides up until that point, well, since then, the boot innovation and evolution has just become faster and faster, and most of the time, better and better. But there have been a few bumps in the road.
Great example of this is the Adidas F50 tune-it system. This idea of changing up the studs on a single pair of football boots is an excellent idea. Unfortunately, the way that it was executed was not the most efficient, and the boot ended up just being too clunky and too heavy to really catch on. Another weird technology that we saw was from Lotto in the form of their twist and go stud, which was basically a stud that could turn 360 degrees underneath your big toe, allowing for more efficient pivoting. The only thing was that it really wasn't something that was noticeable at all, which brings us to the Nike Sense stud, a technology that was introduced on the Mercurial Superfly 2, a stud that could extend or retract depending on the playing surface to allow for maximum traction. Unfortunately, it really didn't move all that much at all. And then finally, the PUMA Evo Speed SL, the lightest football boot the world had ever seen. The only caveat was that it would barely last 10 matches, and nobody wanted to pay $300 for boots that would break in 2 games.
So in other words, innovation and evolution doesn't necessarily always equal progress and quality. In other words, do we really need evolution and innovation? I mean, the Mania Upper from 2002 is very good on a new outsole, so do we need the high tenacity yarns for super lockdown and knitted laceless boots with insane grip or customizable lacing? Do we need it all?
If we look at football boot evolution as a whole, the ones that go down in history as the most important are the ones that typically introduce new ideas and new technologies that we had never seen before, that were maybe a little bit extreme at the time, but eventually these would become the new norm and would be adopted pretty much across the board in all football boots. Things like lighter plastics in sole plates, textile uppers are a big one right now. Did I ever think at any point in time that football boots would be made out of knitted uppers with mid-cut designs and basically be socks with studs attached to the bottom of your feet? Definitely not, but that has become the new norm. So it really takes these extreme designs, these risky technologies that these big brands put out in an attempt to continue to push the boundary forward to make football boots better and better.
And that's actually the major key. Let's return to the Predator Mania remake here, because it was actually only possible to make it this awesome because of the innovation and the evolution we've seen that allowed us to make an outsole like the control frame here. Also, of course, the better anatomical last, which is the shape that the boot is built over, giving this a much more streamlined and anatomical and comfortable fit. And then, of course, the leather itself, because leather today is just a lot softer and more lightweight and a lot more durable than it was back in the day. So even though the boot is built on the same blueprint as back in 2002, the progress we've made in material and manufacturing simply allows us to build a boot that's arguably a lot better than the original. Which brings me to the Predator 20 Plus, because back in 1994, Adidas said that the Predator was 100% legal and 0% fair. Now it's simply just 100% unfair. And I think everyone who's worn the Predator 20 Plus can agree with me that it's probably the most grippy thing they've ever worn in their life. At least, I struggle to think of something grippier. But is that unfair then? I guess it probably is. But until we have something that will give you a measurable advantage over everything else, like making you shoot measurably harder or jump higher or run measurably faster, which even the Vapor 13, for all its awesomeness, can't really do, then I think we're actually still pretty good. For instance, you could take Paul Pogba in his slippers. He's probably still gonna score more top corner bangers with more epic curve than I would do even wearing the 20 Plus. And I realized that applying the same logic, you could take and say that Kipchoge would still outrun me in his socks even if I wore the ZoomX Alphaflys. But I don't think we've come to the point yet where any football boot is so much above and beyond everything else on the market, meaning that even players from other brands will want to jump into the Predator 20 Plus. Okay, it has more grip than everything else, but the Phantom Vision 2 is also very grippy. So until we reach that point, I don't think we need to make any rules or regulations. Yet.
So the question is, can football boot innovation go too far? And I think the answer to this is both yes and no. In the short term, I think it's easy to pick apart certain technologies that aren't the most effective. Not every concept is going to be the next big thing. But in the long term, it's this trial and error process that I think eventually moves the boundary forward in regards to fit, feel, and overall performance of football boots. Without these brands trying new things, we don't exactly know what's possible and what might actually catch on. So for me, innovation in the football boot industry is definitely a good thing, and that's the exciting part. We never really know what's next.
And I agree. We have seen a lot of silly innovations, but to me it's also kind of a trial and error process where you simply throw a lot of innovations on the wall and hope that some of them stick. And fortunately, up until this point, a lot of them, they just have. But do we strictly need evolution and innovation? Well, no, the previous generations, they did just fine without it. But by having innovation, can we change football as a game for the better? Well, look at it this way. You could also build houses 50 years ago, but since then tools and machines have improved. So can you build better houses today? I would probably argue yes. So by having better tools, can you make football a better game? I'd probably also argue yes, you can. So in other words, I hope we're not done seeing all the dumb innovations on top of all the good ones, because it might mean that a big breakthrough is just around the corner. But guys, what do you think? Has football boot innovation and technology gone too far? Well, you should let us know as always right down below. And then of course, don't forget to go support Josh by subscribing to his channel right down there. Of course, also, if you need some gear to train at home and stay in shape, you can get everything you need from Unisport right over there, because we still have very snappy delivery. And also, if you need inspiration on how to improve as a footballer on your own, go check out the playlist right down there. With that said, guys, stay safe. I'm signing off. Cheerio.